All right. I've been thinking about how to word this in the best way that's going to be understood. And I've been having some difficulty with it. But I think it's a specific situation, and obviously specifics are going to help. So I'm just going to go with it. Obviously it's about me. And let's just put it this way. I made a discovery, right? I found something out. And it was not a good discovery. No, it was pretty awful, right? Pretty life-shaking. Oh, shoot. Life-shaking, life-changing. Something I never imagined and never could even imagine the feeling that I was having, all right? Just utter shock, disbelief. It was pretty jarring, very lonely, and very scary. Petrifying, honestly. Initially, extremely. And in that situation, like I think anyone would do, maybe, a lot of people anyways, I really tried to reach out to who I was mostly told, right, were people that were good people, upstanding people, and cared, who I was believing cared not just about him, but about his family. As far as I knew, they cared, right? Okay. So, for that support and that help from these particular people, I reached out, and really I asked for some help. And the only thing I really asked of, there was two men, and this is what I asked them for. Just to say, let's see, that the best thing to do would be to be truthful, to be honest, and that they could respect and support that. That's all I wanted them to do, was say that, of course, the truth is what they would want to be told, and that they would respect and support that, right? I mean, regardless of the situation, I think they could have been able to do that. Just to even say to me, yeah, of course we would say that. Of course we can do that and say that, right? But sadly, I was denied. No, they didn't feel a need to do that, and wouldn't even, I don't know, they kind of acted like it was ridiculous I was even asking for their support in that way. They couldn't agree to do that. No. Instead, what they thought the best thing to do was to simply say that I was wrong. I was wrong. They knew I was wrong. They were taking his side, his word. And what I was told, basically, is, and I'm not going to say, like, I could be talking about one or both, but, yeah. What I was told is that they knew better. And they knew him. They knew him to be the most loyal. And they knew that his actions spoke for themselves. And that that he never gave them any reason to doubt him. Okay? And that was the position they were taking. And you know, that's fine. Like, that, okay, if you're going to take that position, that's fine. But couldn't they still, even with that position, couldn't they still say, of course we support and respect the truth to be told? They're supposedly on the side of truth, right? I mean, even if they just could say to me, yes, of course we would do that, if you really think that would be helpful for you. Yes, but no, they couldn't even just tell me that they would do that. I just got denied that. Okay. But, you go over and over these things like I do. And, you are able to see them from different viewpoints and different angles, like eventually, right? That's how what happens for me. So I'm going to ask this question, have I ever given you any reason to doubt me? I'm going to say no. That's a big no. Definitely not. Right? But, okay. And his actions. Is anyone ever able to know all the actions of a person? Wouldn't it be reasonable to think that someone who's living with the person behind closed doors had children with that person, and that wouldn't it be reasonable to think they might know that person's actions better than anyone? I would think so. Right? I mean, probably. But, and don't you think it's possible even someone you know very well might have things in their life that they don't want anyone knowing about? That's called a secret. So by definition, it's kept hidden from others. Is it not possible that someone you know very well may have some secrets in their life and therefore haven't told you about them because they're a secret? No, is that not? No. Unless you're with him 24/7, could there be some actions of his that you might not know about? When you say his actions speak for themselves, the actions you know about, but you don't know all of them, do you? I mean, it's just kind of very selective, not very objective, right? But whatever. No, that was impossible, I guess, in that person's mind. Okay. I know that I don't always have the popular vote, and that's okay with me, and I know not everybody feels this way, but to me, I'd rather be right than popular. But that's just me. And again, I know I'm not always on the popular with the crowd, but some people are. But to me, that right there is just kind of one-sided blindness. It doesn't, it doesn't even look into, like, you didn't even say, like, well, wait a minute. Instead of just saying, you're wrong, you're absolutely wrong, you haven't even looked at what I'm saying, or you don't even want to hear it. That's the thing, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, you haven't even looked into it to verify if I really was wrong. No, you just automatically jumped over there, right? So I think it should have been said this way. Instead of, I'm wrong, right? And he's right, and you know that. It should have been, regardless of whether he's wrong or right, true or false, I'm taking this side. That's where I'm going, right? Because that's really what it comes down to, right? Because you didn't even know. No, you just automatically and immediately jumped over there, You just didn't bother to be able to make up your own mind based on, you know, what made me say what I was saying. Had no care or desire to even look at it, right? So really it should have been, I'm not taking this side because he's right. It should have been, I'm just taking a side, period. Because that's what it was. But, you know, to make it even worse was the being told that I was crazy. I was just simply crazy to be thinking what I was thinking, right? That's the label that I had. And they were perfectly fine and okay with agreeing with labeling me that way without even knowing, you know what I mean? They just were taking the word, not looking into it to find out if the word was actually true and if my word was actually wrong. You know what I'm saying? Just, okay. But, the truth is, knowing what I know, and what I knew, what was making me say what I say, knowing that, and not saying what I was saying, that would have been crazy. Like knowing what everything that I knew, even at that point, but even worse as time went on, and then being able to say that it was crazy to think what I was thinking, that's what was actually crazy. You know what I'm saying? And honestly, like, let's think about it. First of all, like, jumping on the bandwagon to label someone, like, in a psychosis and out of her mind, you know what I mean? Without even, like, really verifying that. It's kind of nasty thing to do. It just is. But to just immediately and automatically do that and knowing you're going to be tied to that, because that's what they did. I don't know, just kind of these upstanding and, you know, such great people just really dropped really low in my mind. And I think they would in a lot of other people's minds, knowing that. I could be wrong, but just to me, that seems to be accurate. You know what I mean? Because really, that's gaslighting abuse. It is. When you're saying, this is what happened and this is what I know, and just say, no, you're wrong and that's crazy. That's gaslighting. So you're automatically jumping on the side of the gaslighting abuse. And this is the crazy thing too. When I'm saying, hey, you know, I've been hiding this for years, this, and this, and this. And now I'm telling you, right? This has been happening. And you're just going to shut that down? You're going to shut that down and say, no, absolutely no possible way. No way. And even worse, not kidding, I was told that if he, I think it was something along these lines, smacked me or it was the shit out of me or something like that, that they would know he had a good reason to do that. So in other words, if he abused me, then I deserved the abuse. And they would know that. I'm not kidding. Not kidding. Okay? Oh, man. Okay. Obviously, these men, they failed in a lot of different ways. But one thing they really failed at even thinking about was that eventually the truth does come out. And if I had something that was letting me say what I was saying, did they not think that I'd be able to show that? At some point, right? At some point. I mean, truth has a way of doing that, coming into the light for anyone to see and be known. You know, so I guess, I don't know, they either just didn't even think about that, or they really did. I don't know what was going through their minds. But, I guess I'm assuming they didn't even think that there was a possibility that I'd be able to back up what I was saying and prove them wrong. Right? Surprise, surprise. And it's not just a couple things. No, not just a couple obscure maybe things. No. Big laundry list of things. Humongous. Undeniable. Honestly. Really it is. For anyone who can put 2 and 2 together and read. You have to really say that. It's undeniable. But, okay. So, like I said, really, what they really should have said, instead of, we know he's right and you're wrong. What they really should have said was, no matter who's right and who's wrong, we don't care. We're still supporting this side. Because that's what they did. They didn't bother checking, listening, caring. They didn't care. Told me I deserved peace. Right? So, those kind of people, right? That's what they did. Let's be honest. Could we expect them to be honest? I'm going to say probably not. Right? I don't know if I was clear in that. Maybe it might be confusing to some, but I've just had a desire to when someone really goes through some pretty terrible shit and isn't treated very well, and after so long, finally wants to break free of that stuff, right? And then they've been quiet for so long, and now it's like an explosion, and the world's gonna know, I mean, maybe it's a case of that, like, I don't know, I'm gonna silence all my naysayers and everyone who, said that, I was crazy and I was wrong. And I'm gonna, expose. So, this is me doing that. I'm obviously not using names, but those who know will know.